Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Matt Viegas. I am a student in my third and final year of physical therapy school. So I'm going to talk a little bit back about my college undergraduate experience and how, as the title says, how networking led to this position of research in a lab with Drosophila melanogaster, which is fruit flies, commonly known, and how that eventually led to a strong letter of recommendation and just that overall experience of how I felt that someone recognized me and qualities and traits in me that I didn't personally think about, and just how that piece and having that mentor and that advice really helped me with this process of getting into physical therapy school. So that's a boatload. Let's get into it. So how I got into this position, first and foremost, with college, during college, it wasn't until my third year that I finally started working in this research lab. But before that, in my first year, I was just undecided, undeclared, open, didn't know what I wanted to do at UC Irvine. And just going through that whole freshman experience in the dorms and trying to meet new people, especially because it was my first time away from home, growing up in the Bay Area, Northern California, and then moving down to Southern California, Irvine, Orange County, and just how that experience of trying to get to know more about myself and meeting new people, and then taking a little bit more intentional steps with knowing that I wanted to do something related to health, something in the healthcare profession, and trying to figure out, well, gee, like if I'm going to apply to these schools, like what is it that I need? Not just having decent grades, GPA, but what other components of that application process do I need to flesh out? And of course, letter of recommendation is a big one, and that's a really tough one at a big university, big public school. And I gotta say, going to UC Irvine was an amazing experience, but being a biology major, it's extremely intimidating to be in classes with the size of like 200, 300 students. So I needed to figure out how the heck am I going to get a letter of rec from a professor. And so I did leadership positions during my third year, got into student government, but basically what I did was sort of followed the college branches of some groups, some clubs that I was involved with in high school. And so in high school, I was involved with the Filipino American Club, and then also with Key Club, the community service club, the high school branch of the Kiwanis family. And so continuing on in college, I joined the Filipino club Kababayan. A lot of the bias there was because Kaba Modern branched off from there, and that was huge because Kaba Modern, they started from the Filipino American Cultural Nights, and just that whole experience. I think I talked about that before in another video, and I can always share about that if you want to hear more about that. But anyways, getting back to the research lab, I took upon more leadership positions, and the big one that mattered most was with the Filipino club, getting more involved there, and how that led to a leadership position as a member of the Umbrella Council of the Cross-Cultural Center, which is the resource center, on-campus resource center for students of color, minority groups, and that is a whole nother experience I could get into later, but just how I met more people eventually led to like, well, hey, there's this position here, if you're up for it, try it out. And it started out as a summer thing. So it wasn't even during school time. I was just in the summer helping out, not for a grade, not for work or anything, just unpaid, and just hoping that I could get into this position. So basically, to explain about this lab, it's the Dr. Rose lab, and it's in the School of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology. And one of the interesting things about this series of projects and experiments with fruit flies is how they just reproduce over a very quick time frame, and how just having these experiments going on, what was really cool about the project I was working on is how it was titled speciation, and just how these flies reproducing over and over and over in some minute different environments eventually led to them having differences in their genes, their DNA, which is pretty cool. So got to help out with that, which is a huge project. And the research lab manager, who became one of my earliest mentors, he needed people to lead and to help out. And I became one of those people who led in the research lab, just by the nature of doing these things that are repetitive, these activities that are simple to explain, easy to do, that, as my lab manager would say, even a middle schooler could do it, but it's not about the task. It's more about just being able to show up, be responsible, and be accountable. And those were, as a student leader, those were traits that I always possessed and always had the intention of developing, because I wanted to be successful and to go on to a healthcare profession. So just showing up and doing things that are repetitive, a lot of that for me came from running cross country and track and field in high school, doing distance running, just doing things over and over that are repetitive, but for whatever reason I just enjoy. And so developing that showing up is what really developed this relationship with me and my mentor, despite being in this lab with, say, 40 people, and how it would reach a point where I wouldn't recognize it in myself, but my mentor, he was looking for people to step it up, and he approached me and said, we need talent. And I was that was one of the first times where I really felt proud, and just to have that recognition, despite being at this huge school and this huge lab, and how me just showing up, doing things that are repetitive and just not complaining about it, how that could eventually lead to a strong letter of recommendation, and how serving as my mentor, giving me advice onwards beyond the research lab after I graduated, and how Larry, how he would give me advice not just about the letter of rec, but just about how to flesh out this whole physical therapy application, and just how to approach it was the main thing. Because I'm just gonna finish off by sharing his inspirational story with my mentor Larry. He had that struggle with having a low GPA, and he had an amazing reason for it that he revealed to me in a one-on-one conversation while giving me advice about how he was a good student and got the good grades and everything, but then for whatever reason doctors thought that he had cancer. And just from there, my mentor Larry, he had this huge downhill, I'm not even gonna go into too much detail, but he broke up with his girlfriend, his grades were dropping, and that whole experience. And then to finally realize that it's not true, and then pick up the grades again, and then having his dreams revitalized again and reaching the position that he did with pursuing a PhD and then becoming my mentor, working in a pretty prestigious lab at a prestigious school, UC Irvine. And so I share that because we all go through our own personal struggles and our own personal stories, but definitely one of the big things that's talked about a lot nowadays from different people like Eric Thomas and Gary Vaynerchuk is grind and hustle. There definitely is, to a point. Some work-life balance is needed, but definitely work ethic is something where you just gotta put your head down, and once you know you're doing the right thing, put your head down and do it. So I'm gonna cap it off at there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your time and listening, especially if you're live. If you're watching the replay, give us a like, comment. Really appreciate it. All right, have a good one. Adios.